Is it a deep lake?
I wouldn't say it's that deep. Never proved to me to be that deep. It's 14, 18 feet deep.
And if that's at its deepest, what effect would it have if you lost 5 foot of water on this relatively shallow lake?
You're exposing a lot of this shoreline, which would not have been exposed to wave action before. So if we drop this below where some of the algae is at, you're starting to get into some of these areas where this sediment has been deposited. You know, and maybe it's not the waves as much as if you take a jet ski along there and you're disturbing that water and it's rolling along, you're now disturbing more of the sediment. Again, kicking it up into the water column, it has to have time to settle back down. Certainly the lakes become busier. June, July, the water's warmer. Warmer water has an ability to hold more phosphorus, so therefore, as it's settling, that entire particle is now exposed to the water around it, and it can get phosphorus off those particles as they settle. So it basically just continues to add the amount of phosphorus in the lake by having it at a lower level where the sediments can now interact with the wind and the waves that are there.
So are you telling me that if the lake water level is lower, that a recreational use or a beneficial use such as boating in itself could add more phosphorus to the water?
Now, but I had prepared another graphic just looking at some of the data that DNR had, just answering a very simple question or asking a simple question. So what is the relationship between the phosphorus in the lake and the lake level? Well, and this is again based on the data from the STORAT, the EPA STORAT publicly available data set. There are...
And is this, not to interrupt, is this Exhibit 10?
Yes, Exhibit 10. This has, I believe it's 31 days of 31 specific days of sampling over, let's see, from 1989 to 2008, although the record's not continuous on the way that the sampling was done, but just plotting the two of them together.
Before you get into explaining, where did you get this data from?
This is from the STORAT database service, EPA. Stores all of the data that is sent by individual states related to their monitoring programs. And so for anyone here, state of South Dakota, doesn't matter, you can go out to EPA. You can query this by the location, you can query it by county, you can query it by geographic name, and it will give you all of the data that they actually have collected, all of the parameters. So it's not just for phosphorus, it's for everything. So that entire list of dissolved oxygen, pH, chlorine, residual, unionized, all of those. It basically gives you all of that data.
So Exhibit 10 is just specifically Lake Poncet?
Yes, this is just for Lake Poncet, and I guess I did not put that up at the top there, but that's just the total phosphorus measured in milligrams per liter versus the lake level at the time the measurement was taken. And in general, you know, it looks like the higher the lake level, the lower concentration of phosphorus you have.
Well, now that seems kind of counterintuitive to me. And in looking at your graph, I see the line going down.
Well,
so
the lake level, it decreases. This is increasing here. So as it goes down, and that negative slope, basically as the lake level drops, again, you have the evaporation occurring. That's pure water that's leaving. The volume of the lake is decreasing. So you have basically the same amount of phosphorus that's available. It's just that it's concentrated in a smaller and smaller volume.
So in the data provided to the EPA, it shows that there's a trend that as the lake levels get lower, the phosphorus concentration goes up?
Yeah.
Now, the various state agencies that are here continue to say that their primary concern is lake water quality.
Yes.
And as a part of their, or as a majority of their argument, they continue to talk about phosphorus having the largest effect on this water quality. Now, what is it specifically about phosphorus that affects quality of water?
Phosphorus affects other factors, but the phosphorus itself actually isn't what is the problem. Phosphorus sometimes can be the limiting nutrient for algae growth and for algae blooms.
Is phosphorus detrimental to humans by itself in the water?
No, no. There's phosphorus actually added, or has been added over a number of years to the water that I drink out of the city of Brookings. And one of the reasons for that is that in older sections of town, you have lead pipes. And of course, you get just over years, you get a little bit of lead that's going to come out into that water. So to make it less bioavailable, there's a difference between something that you can consume and have it available and get into your system and something that's not available. So we define the term bio, B-I-O, available, so that a lead phosphate basically goes right through and you drink it and it goes back out in the waste. So we have used it in a number of different manners to sequester other compounds. It's used in landfill leachate. There are trenches that you can dig. I know they've done this in Iowa where you have landfill leachate coming out, and you'll spread phosphorus fertilizer there to keep heavy metals from moving away from certain areas. But the idea with that is that compound, especially lead phosphate, one of them, is not bioavailable. So you can eat it, and the fact is I've worked with it quite a bit in the lab. It's not one of those that I have an MSDS that says I have a lot of concerns with. There's a lot of other things in the lab I do.
And is phosphorus itself dangerous to fish life, aquatic life in Lake Poncet?
It doesn't have an established regulated standard that says once it gets to this level that it would affect the fish. Unionized ammonia and nitrate do. Those have very specific levels. That molecule in the water does directly affect them. The phosphate is basically linked to algae growth.
So under what's regulated by the state, they say ammonia is specifically dangerous to the water qualities.
Yes.
But they don't regulate phosphorus.
Yes.
Now, have there been any parties or groups that have attempted to reduce phosphorus levels in Lake Poncet?
Again, that was sure get the name of it right. Lake Poncet Watershed Project. That's the one that Mr. Rick Smith here was the project coordinator on that. This project specifically looked at non-point source pollution control. With that, I believe they spent, I had that number here a second ago, about $1.8 million, $1.6 million, over a period of April 21st, 98 to about July 1st, 2007, 9 years, 2 months. That was about $175,000 a year that was spent on that. The money came from EPA 319 grants. Now, the 319 program is specifically linked to non-point source pollution. The eligible local match on that ran a little over $800,000. This was more than half of the grant that was on that. That was non-federal, non-state money. Other money came from the USDA EQIP program, EQIP. Again, these were linked to non-point source pollution. And if I go back to figure 9, the non-point sources of pollution that we're looking at are really related to this runoff and erosion. The background level of phosphorus in soils in South Dakota is about 1,000 to 2,000 parts per million. And that's just the natural soil without any additional fertilizer or anything else that's on that. I obtained that number from Ron Gelderman, who's the director of the Soil Testing Laboratory at SDSU's, worked quite a bit with